So, Dr. Malone, what brings you, a doctor, out to this gathering of European conservative politicians?
The honest answer is that I was very involved with the AUR party in their planning, together with myself and two of my colleagues, for the 4th International Crisis Summit, and then the 5th International Crisis Summit that took place in Washington, D.C. It was leaders from the AUR party that really advocated that we have that summit here in Ceausescu's palace, and then with that success that we carry it on and have another summit in D.C. And those were so successful, including in the D.C. summit, coordinating with CPAC, that they asked me if I could consider attending this conference, and that they would like to host me and take this time to show me around some of Romania. And so that's why I've come, is I was asked by my friends to attend. I had to reorganize my schedule, and it's a sign of my gratitude to them and their gratitude for what I've done to help them that I'm here. That's the truth of what took place.
When you look at the state of politics in Europe and in North America and what we all went through during the pandemic, what is it today that gives you the most fear and the most concern for what could come in the future?
The growth of the censorship industrial complex and propaganda, and the growth of the technology of psychological warfare that is being deployed by governments and by the World Health Organization and by the European Union, and also by the other globalist organizations against people. The technology is so powerful that they can control everything that you hear, think, feel, believe. And when a government feels that it's acceptable to deploy this technology that was really designed for warfare, psychological warfare, against its own population, then that makes the whole concept of sovereignty completely obsolete. The idea that we have autonomy becomes completely obsolete when everything that you hear, see, feel, think is controlled and manipulated in order to cause you to think in certain ways. That's what worries me, is basically we're driving towards a place where there no longer is freedom of thought. We're not only losing freedom of speech, we're losing freedom of thought. We're losing freedom of belief, of emotions. All of those things are being intentionally manipulated. And when that happens, one of the consequences is it completely destroys innovation. When it's the bureaucracy that's determining what you can hear, think, feel, believe, and know, then that means that you are not able to adapt to local conditions. You're not able to innovate to solve problems. You're only able to adapt and comply with the solutions that are being promoted. And that is, the death of society. That puts us into the dark ages. That's exactly what we should not be doing. In these times of change and challenge, what we should do is allow innovation to flourish. We shouldn't be shutting it down through propaganda and censorship. That's what worries me.
Well, you touched on a few things there. You touched on the way that the governments utilized the technology during the pandemic and how censorship is taking place. In my country, in Canada, our Prime Minister, who was well known for his handling of the protesters toward his handling of the pandemic, they've also just put in new legislation, online hate speech laws, and controlling the internet. What do you make of the situation in Canada?
Canada's lost. I'm stunned at how effective the World Economic Forum, through its Young Leaders program, has been to subvert Canadian nation state without firing a single shot. What's happened in Canada under Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland is absolutely stunning. And you haven't mentioned the weaponization of finance. The weaponization of finance is another thing that I find extremely troubling. When you, not only are they now able to control everything that you think, feel, believe, all information that you're gaining access to, they're able to control your personal finance and access to finance. This is the lesson we learned from what happened with the Canadian truckers. And even though this was determined by your Supreme Court to have been an illegal action on the part of the Trudeau Freeland regime, really, this is still being deployed. I had an incremental version of this deployed against myself. Nigel Farage has had it. They are deploying this weaponization of finance globally, again and again and again, down to the individual level. And with the implementation of central bank digital currency, they're going to be able to do this in an algorithmic, systematic way. That will completely destroy the ability of people's freedom. You will be routed into really it's worse than a Chinese social credit system. And that is extremely troublesome, particularly when it's coupled with the censorship and propaganda.